Galactic Mercenaries took a human hostage. Then they read, "Here is Callsign." The Galactic War blazed like a cosmic pyre, its embers scorching the edges of dying stars as empires clashed in a relentless struggle for dominance. Within the nebula's prismatic haze, where light fractured into ghostly spectrums, the human supply vessel, Starling, navigated the outer rim's desolate void. Lieutenant Eli Voss, Callsign. The Pale Reaper sat at the helm, his pale eyes glinting like polished steel under the cockpit's dim glow. At 32, he was a specter of Earth's Recon Ghost Division trained to infiltrate enemy lines, manipulate their systems, and unravel their resolve before they sensed their doom. His mind was a fortress of calculated silence, each thought a strategic thread woven from years of surviving against impossible odds on worlds where hope was a forgotten relic. Eli's hands moved with practiced precision over the Starling's controls, the hum of the ship's engines a steady pulse beneath his fingers. His recon knife, scarred from campaigns across the Orion rims, rested in its sheath, a silent testament to battles won in shadows. The Starling carried medical supplies for a coalition outpost, a routine mission in a war that knew no rest. Yet the nebula's eerie silence set Eli's instincts on edge, his senses attuned to the faintest ripples of danger. Unbeknownst to him, the Blackhold, a Varix warship of jagged obsidian spires, loomed in the nebula's depths. Its hull pulsed with the arrogance of conquest etched with scars of vanquished fleets. General Cavor, its six-armed commander, stood on the bridge, his black horns gleaming under crimson lights, mandibles clicking like the chambers of a loaded weapon. His hunger for dominance was insatiable, and the Starling was an easy target in his campaign to assert Varix supremacy in the Galactic War. The ambush struck with predatory precision. Plasma bolts shredded the Starling's shields in seconds, their searing light painting the cockpit in blinding flashes. Boarding hooks latched onto the hull like iron claws sinking into flesh, the screech of metal reverberating through the ship. Sparks erupted across Eli's console, the acrid scent of burning circuits stinging his nose. He triggered the distress beacons, its signal a faint cry swallowed by the nebula's haze. His inner voice remained steady. "They see fragility, but fragility is my blade. Let them come." Dragged aboard the Blackhold like discarded wreckage, Eli was stripped of his gear sidearm comms and his battered recon knife, its blade etched with the ghosts of past victories. Thrown into a cell, where energy bars hummed with lethal charge, their blue glow casting eerie shadows across his angular features, he faced the towering Varix crew. Their scales glinted under flickering lights, mandibles snapping in derision as they towered over the human. Cavor's log entry crackled through the ship's comms, his voice a low growl. "We captured a human, a fragile creature no more than a space zombie devoid of strategic value." Eli leaned against the cell's cold wall, the metal biting into his back, his calm exterior masking a storm within. Memories flashed through his mind, Orion outposts reduced to chaos, warlords' fleets turned to ghosts, their crews broken by fear before a single shot was fired. "They think me prey," he mused, "but I'm the hunter they'll never see." Captain Vale, the Slinth strategist, glided past his cell, her serpentine body coiling, her bulging eyes scanning for anomalies. Her scales shimmered faintly, catching the cell's glow, and she paused, sensing a void where fear should have been. He's not breaking. She thought he's building something like a trap set in silence. Specialist Crix, a Grelm with brainwave sensing tendrils quivering like antennae, brushed past his intuitive senses, prickling. "This one's mind. It's like a shadow in still water," he muttered to a guard who scoffed, "Let the hollow one rot." The crew's disdain was palpable, rooted in the galaxy's deep-seated prejudice. Humans, emotional primitives from a backwater world, were burdens in the coalition against the Void Hordes. Eli's capture was a trophy of their supposed inferiority, a footnote in Cavor's campaign. Yet, as the Blackhold hummed toward the collision belt, a treacherous expanse of asteroids and debris, where jagged rocks spun like silent executioners, Eli's silence began to weave invisible threads. Cavor barked orders from the bridge, his six arms slashing the air, oblivious to the ghost in their midst. Eli's mind raced, mapping the ship's systems from fleeting glimpses during his transfer vent placements, hidden in shadows, console layouts vulnerable to overload the faint hum of overtaxed reactors, betraying weak points. Underestimate me, he thought, cracking a faint smile that unsettled a passing guard, and I'll carve your fears into legend. The crew's arrogance was their first misstep, and Eli was already 3 moves ahead, his presence a silent threat, as the ship neared the belt's jagged embrace. The interrogation chamber was a tomb of dim light and oppressive energy, its walls pulsing with the hum of Varix technology, the air thick with the scent of ozone and scorched metal. General Cavor loomed over Eli, his 6 arms folded in predatory poise, mandibles clicking like a firing squad's rifles. His black horns cast jagged shadows across the steel floor, his presence a monument to Varix dominance. Human, he rumbled, his voice, echoing like a thunderclap, reveal your coalition's flanks, or taste the void's embrace. Eli sat bound in the center chair, wrists cuffed with energy bands that buzzed faintly, their electric hum a constant reminder of captivity. His gaze remained steady, pale eyes sharp as a sniper's scope, offering only a serene smile. No pleas, no defiance, just an enigmatic calm that clashed with Cavor's expectations. They prod for weakness, Eli thought, but weakness is their mirror. I've faced worse in the dark of Traxxas 3, where silence was my shield. Captain Vale activated the bio-interrogation machine, its probes humming to measure emotional spikes, their tips glowing like malevolent eyes in the gloom. Lights danced across panels, their erratic patterns reflecting the crew's growing frustration. But the readings flatlined no fear, no anger. Only a hollow echo that baffled the system. The crew gathered at the chamber's edges jeered. Humans are hollow, empty shells in the storm of war. Their voices dripped with contempt, their scales rattling as they mocked the prisoner. Vale's bulging eyes narrowed, her serpentine body coiling tighter, her scales shimmering like liquid silver under the flickering lights. He's not afraid. He's not angry. As if waiting for something, she pondered, a chill tracing her scales, her strategist's mind catching the faint ripple of a deeper game. Specialist Crix extended his intuitive tendrils, their tips quivering as they probed Eli's consciousness, sensing aberrant waves. His mind is a labyrinth echoing with ghosts of battles won without blood, Crix thought, his voice low as he muttered to a technician. This one's different. Eli's silence amplified the crew's disdain, each unanswered query a blow to their pride. Cavor flexed his claws, frustration mounting like a gathering tempest. Speak or we extract it painfully, he roared, slamming a fist against the console, the sound reverberating like a war drum through the chamber. Eli's response was a soft chuckle laced with irony that cut deeper than any blade. Pain's a poor teacher, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, his pale eyes locking onto Cavor's with an intensity that made the general flinch. Pain is fleeting. Fear is eternal. Eli's inner voice affirmed, drawing from memories of solitary survivals on shattered worlds. Worlds like Traxxas 3, where he turned enemy arrogance into ash by exploiting their overconfidence. The session ended in stalemate, the Varix retreating with bruised egos, unaware that the real interrogation had reversed. Eli's silence was a weapon, each unanswered query, a psychological jab that left them reeling, their confidence fraying like a worn cable. In the command deck, Vale confided in Cavor, her voice low and urgent. This one defies logic. No readings, no breaks. It's as if he's playing us. Cavor dismissed her with a snort, his mandibles snapping. Primitives play games. We crush them. But seeds of doubt sprouted in Vale's mind, her instincts screaming that this human was no ordinary prisoner. Crix, lingering nearby, murmured to a technician. His mind doesn't bend, it shapes like a sculptor carving chaos. The crew's disdain deepened, but so did their unease, a quiet fracture forming as the Blackhold approached the collision belt. Whispers spread among the younger warriors in the mess hall, their voices hushed in the flickering light. What if he's not hollow, but something else? One asked, his eyes darting nervously. Another scoffed, but his claws twitched, betraying his bravado. Eli, alone in his cell, closed his eyes, mapping the ship's pulse, every hum, every flicker. a clue to its vulnerabilities. They'll learn soon, he thought, when their own systems turn traitor. The collision belt loomed like a cosmic graveyard, its asteroids spinning in silent menace, their jagged forms illuminated by flickering starlight that cast eerie shadows across the Blackhold's hull. The ship navigated the treacherous maw, its sensors straining against the debris field's chaos. Without warning, systems faltered, lights flickered like dying stars, weapon ports sealed shut as if by invisible hands, strategic maps dissolved into static voids that swallowed tactical data. Alarms wailed briefly, their klaxons cutting through the silence, then silenced themselves, leaving the crew in a haunting quiet that clung like damp fog. General Cavor stormed the bridge, his horns casting sharp shadows as he roared AI sabotage. Fix it now, engineers scrambled their claws, tapping frantically at consoles, the air thick with the scent of overheated circuits and rising panic. Diagnostics revealed no faults, only anomalies timed with eerie precision, as if the ship itself were rebelling against its masters. In his cell, Eli sat motionless, eyes closed in meditation, his mind a silent battlefield, where strategies unfolded like chess moves across an infinite board. Systems are minds. Minds are fragile. He reflected, recalling hacked networks on Orion outposts, where code became chaos turning enemy tech against itself. His training in the Recon Ghost Division had honed this art, exploiting vulnerabilities, not in armor, but in psyche and systems. Guards whispered outside his cell, their voices laced with unease. I saw him move when the camera was off. One Varix warrior peering through the energy bars met Eli's sudden gaze, a pale reaper-like stare that sent shivers through his armored hide, his scales rattling faintly. Captain Vale reviewed security feeds in the command deck, her serpentine form coiled tightly, as she noted glitches aligning with Eli's subtle shifts, slight tilts of the head fingers tapping rhythmically against the cell wall. Coincidence. Or control. She wondered, her suspicion blooming into a cold unease that tightened her chest. Crix conducted a deep scan, his brainwave tendrils probing Eli's consciousness like divers in a murky sea. The waves returned distorted, fragmented as if scattered by an unseen barrier. He isn't quite here. Crix stammered, his tendrils retracting in alarm. His mind wanders paths we can't follow. The crew's disdain cracked. Younger warriors ceased their mocking jests, their bravado fading like smoke in the wind. Veterans exchanged grave nods, memories of galactic rumors stirring tales of fleets vanishing without trace, attributed to voids, but whispered to be the work of a human ghost. A minor clash erupted when a console exploded in sparks, injuring a technician who screamed about cursed circuits. Officially blamed on asteroid debris, the incident fueled doubt that lingered like the smell of burnt metal. Cavor roared defiance. We are Varix. No phantom will unmake us. Yet his inner thoughts betrayed uncertainty. What if this human is the storm we cannot weather? Eli's calm persisted, a silent clash against the crew's mounting paranoia. Memories flooded his mind. Surviving Traxxas 3 alone, navigating a shattered outpost where he turned enemy drones against their masters, with nothing but a hacked terminal and unwavering patience. The collision belt's dangers amplified the malfunctions, each glitch a needle in the crew's fraying nerves. A guard reported a flickering light in Eli's cell, though he hadn't moved. Another swore the comms whispered his name Reaper, in a voice that left no trace in the logs. The first real fracture appeared in crew morale whispers, turning to accusations in the mess hall. The humans cursed us, one warrior hissed, his claws twitching nervously. As asteroids grazed the Blackhold's hull, their impacts reverberating like distant war drums, the true battle ignited not against the rocks, but within the ship's unraveling psyche. Night cycles aboard the Blackhold brought no respite, only amplified dread that seeped into the crew's bones like cosmic radiation. The air grew heavy thick with the metallic tang of fear and malfunctioning systems. A young Varix soldier, Tars emboldened by bravado and desperate to prove his mettle among his sneering peers, approached Eli's cell with a plasma gun drawn, its barrel glowing faintly in the dim light. "Scream for us, human!" he snarled, pressing the weapon against the humming energy bars, their blue light casting his scales in a sickly hue. Eli raised his hand slowly, his expression unreadable, then gestured for the weapon with a calm nod. A momentary glitch in the cell's field, a flicker no one could explain, allowed the gun to slide through, and Tars froze as Eli turned the barrel on himself, pressing it to his temple. The crew watching via security feeds held their breath, their scales rattling in unison. Eli pulled the trigger. Click. No discharge. "If I were you," he whispered, his voice like a blade's edge slicing through the silence, "I'd leave this ship before it has no way out." Panic seized Tars. His mandibles quivered as he stumbled back, eyes wide with terror, and fled down the corridor, his footsteps echoing like a retreating army. He locked himself in a storage room, babbling of ghosts and demons, his screams muffled through steel walls. That sacrifice, Eli's feigned suicide attempt, rippled through the crew like a psychic shockwave shattering their fragile bravado. They fear the unknown. I am the unknown, Eli mused, handing the gun back through the bars as if it were a child's toy, his pale eyes glinting with quiet amusement. Crix, monitoring from the shadows, sensed a surge in mental energy, his tendrils trembling, his mind projected illusion. Control, ha. Captain Vale confronted Kavor in the command deck, her voice sharp as a blade. "This isn't normal. He's unraveling us without a touch." We're playing his game now. By dawn, the armory locked remotely, its blast doors sealed behind unyielding steel, defying all overrides. Radar stations emitted reverse SOS signals, beacons of distress inverted to mockery, broadcasting chaos to the void in a language no one could trace. Crew members reported shadows flickering in corridors, their forms vanishing when lights stabilized. Names whispered over comms. Tars Kavor Reaper with no traceable source, the logs eerily silent. One warrior, haunted by memories of lost battles on Shakal rims, sacrificed his post, deserting to an escape pod. His last words a trembling, "The Reaper sees us." Kavor's arrogance wavered, his 6 arms twitching nervously as he paced the bridge. Have we captured a demon? Eli, in solitude, drew strength from memories of fateful loves lost in war, a medic on Traxxas 3. Her final words, a whispered vow as she bled out in his arms. Survive and make them see. Those sacrifices forged his unyielding resolve, a fire that burned beneath his calm exterior. The turning point solidified. Disdain melted into dawning horror. Vale's logs, scribbled in haste on a flickering datapad, read, "The human sacrifices nothing yet, takes everything. We must understand him before it's too late." The crew's unity fractured fear, replacing contempt, as Eli's presence became a haunting specter, a ghost slipping through the cracks of their reality. Whispers in the mess hall turned to shouts. "He's not human, he's a curse!" A young warrior cried, his claws scraping the table in desperation. The ship's hum grew erratic, as if echoing the crew's unraveling nerves, leading to a shift in alliances and perspectives. Fissures spread through the Blackhold's crew, like cracks in armored plating. Morale crumbling under the weight of unseen dread. The mess hall buzzed with tension. Warriors divided some clutching weapons like talismans against the unknown others, avoiding Eli's cell entirely, their eyes darting nervously in the flickering light. General Kavor, his horns gleaming under emergency lights, pounded a fist on the command console, the sound reverberating like a death knell. End the Phantom, space him now. Captain Vale, her long form coiled in defiance, protested, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We don't understand him. Killing blindly invites doom." Her bulging eyes locked onto Kavor's, challenging his authority with a strategist's clarity. Debates raged in the mess hall, warriors shouting over one another, some clamoring for blood, others whispering of curses and omens, their scales rattling with unease. Specialist Crix presented evidence his intuitive scans cross-referenced with galactic databases, accessed via a faltering uplink, the Pale Reaper, a legendary figure. Destroyed 3 intergalactic bases without trace. Humans don't win by strength, they win by silence. His tendrils quivered as he spoke, projecting images of shattered outposts and vanished fleets onto a flickering holoscreen. Stories of Eli's exploits in the Galactic War spread like wildfire sci-fi tales, whispered of humans as tactical enigmas, emotional fortresses turning battles inward before a shot was fired. A veteran Varix, his scales scarred from Shakale campaigns, leaned forward in the mess hall, his voice low and gravelly. I saw a fleet vanish on the rims, blamed on voids, but whispers said, Reaper. No trace, no survivors, just silence. Eli, overhearing through vented comms that crackled with static, smiled inwardly. Legends are weapons. I wield mine with care. Vale's perspective shifted to curiosity, her strategist mind reevaluating. What if he's not inferior but evolved, a species that fights in shadows we can't see? Crix's readings amplified his voice, trembling as he addressed the bridge crew. His mind? It's a weapon-resistant adaptive unlike anything we've faced. The alliance of eyes formed subtly, Vale and Crix advocating caution, pulling others into admiration's orbit. Younger crew members gazed at Eli's cell with awe, their disdain melting into reverence. One whispered to another in the corridor, their voices barely audible over the ship's erratic hum. He doesn't fight like us. He thinks us to death. Cavor, isolated in his arrogance, felt the tide turn, his 6 arms clenching in frustration. They looked to him now. How dare they? Eli's inner monologue deepened, reflecting on past missions where fear became his ally, friendship in fear. No recognition of truth. They're beginning to see. The crew's division widened, some refusing duty, their posts abandoned as they huddled in barracks muttering prayers to forgotten gods of their homeworlds. Others clutched weapons tighter, as if steel could ward off the intangible. A young Slynth technician, inspired by Vale's defiance, approached Eli's cell, whispering through the bars. Are you really him? The Reaper. Eli's response was a faint nod, his eyes warm yet piercing, like a star's light cutting through the void. I'm just a man. For now. The technician retreated, heart-pounding, with a mix of fear and admiration. As admiration grew, the reluctant revelation of humanity's potential loomed, forcing a confrontation with the galaxy's deep-seated prejudice against the weak species from Earth. The Blackhold drifted in psychological ruins, its once proud crew reduced to trembling shadows, cowering in flickering corridors. General Cavor, his voice hoarse with desperation, ordered Eli's cell door open for expulsion. Into the void with you, he bellowed, his 6 arms trembling as he stood before the control panel, sweat beading on his scales. But as the seals hissed, the ship plunged into darkness, lights extinguished, AI-overridden consoles sparking in rebellion like a mutinous army. Substations erupted in contained blasts, their muffled booms echoing through the hull. No casualties, but terror absolute, as if the Blackhold itself turned traitor against its masters. A single voice echoed ship-wide Eli's calm timbre, cutting through the chaos like a beacon in the void. You should never capture an Earthling without asking why he is alone. Chaos reigned. Crew members gripped by haunting visions turned weapons inward. Suicides born from fear's relentless grip shadows, manifesting as personal demons from battles long lost. Their minds break like brittle shields. Eli thought stepping free from his cell, his presence a chilling specter in the flickering halls, his boots silent on the grated floor. Captain Vale, frozen in awe on the bridge, realized with a shudder, he's the reluctant weapon tactics, emotions, resistance incarnate. Humans? They're the apex predators of the psyche. Crix collapsed against a console, his tendrils overwhelmed voice, a whisper. His energy, it's everywhere, questioning existence itself. Cavor confronted Eli amid the chaos, his mandibles quivering as he blocked a corridor. What are you? Eli's response was profound, delivered with a quiet smile that belied the storm around them. Just a man who fights in the mind before the shot. Memories surged through Eli's sacrifices for coalition allies, the fateful love of a medic lost on Traxxas 3. Her final words, a whispered vow as she bled out in his arms, survive and make them see. That vow fueled his determination, a fire that burned beneath his calm exterior. The ship's self-destructed inwardly systems warring against their operators, weapon ports firing warning shots into empty halls, gravity fluctuating to send warriors sprawling comms looping their own terrified voices back at them. Prejudice crumbled as the Variks saw humanity's truth, not simple, but strategically supreme. Their minds a labyrinth where enemies lost themselves. Warriors dropped their weapons, some weeping openly, others staring vacantly as their reality unraveled like a frayed tapestry. The collapse peaked, leaving survivors in a silence heavy with reverence, their minds echoing with the legend of the Pale Reaper, a name now synonymous with dread and awe. The Blackhold drifted aimlessly, a hollow shell cradled in the stars' cold embrace, its corridors silent save for the distant hum of failing systems. Eli commandeered a shuttle, its engines humming softly, as he departed untouched, leaving the warship a monument to broken arrogance. The surviving crew, traumatized Variks, huddled in corners, recounted in whispers. "We captured the wrong creature. He is a story told to keep new recruits awake." General Kavor, his spirit shattered, sat alone on the bridge, etching a final log into a flickering datapad. "Do not engage Earth units unless prepared to question your entire existence." His 6 arms trembled as he wrote the weight of defeat heavier than any battle wound. Captain Vale and Specialist Crix, forever changed, spread the legend across 12 planets humans. The weakest yet most dangerous their minds, fortresses unbreachable their tactics, a silent apocalypse. At a Coalition outpost, Eli's shuttle docked to stunned silence the hangar bay, bathed in the harsh glow of overhead lights. Officers murmured in hushed tones, their voices a mix of awe and disbelief. The Pale Reaper lives. In debrief, Commander Halvox, a grizzled human veteran with scars mapping his own wars, fixed Eli with a knowing look across a steel table. "They underestimated you," he said, his voice gruff but tinged with pride. Eli shrugged, his voice calm, almost casual. "They underestimated. I existed." Inner peace settled over him. True power lay not in weapons, but in the mind, a lesson carved into his soul through years of sacrifice. The most dangerous need proved nothing. He thought, recalling the medic's face, her sacrifice a beacon that guided him through the dark. A junior Slinth, her scales still glossy with youth, approached hesitantly in the outpost's bustling corridor. "Is it true you broke them without a fight?" Eli's smile was warm, almost human in its softness, but his pale eyes held a glint of the void. "Don't underestimate humans. We fight in minds before shots." The galaxy shifted. Prejudice resolved alliances strengthened by reverence. In strategy halls across the Coalition, tablets were etched with a new truth, their surfaces gleaming under alien suns, humans warriors of will, guardians of the profound. The legend of the Pale Reaper grew carved into the stone of 12 worlds, a warning and a promise. True strength whispers before it roars. Eli's departure left the Blackhold a relic adrift in the nebula's embrace, its silence louder than any explosion. The surviving Variks crew, scattered across their broken ship, began to rebuild, but their minds bore scars deeper than any hull breach. In the mess hall, warriors sat in stunned quiet, their scales dull under flickering lights, their once proud boasts replaced by murmurs of the Pale Reaper. A young Variks, his mandibles still trembling, etched a crude symbol into the table, a human silhouette with pale eyes, a tribute to the ghost who unraveled them. He didn't fight, he whispered to his comrade, he was the fight. Across the galaxy, the legend of the Pale Reaper spread like a contagion. On the desert world of Cryan traders and bustling markets recounted tales of a human who broke a warship without a weapon, their voices hushed as they passed crude sketches of a pale-eyed figure. In the neon-lit taverns of Xylera, pilots shared stories over glowing drinks, their eyes darting as if expecting Eli's shadow in the corners. The Coalition's strategic halls buzzed with debate analysts poring over fragmented logs from the Blackhold, piecing together a profile of a man who weaponized silence. Commander Halvox, now tasked with integrating human tactics into Coalition strategy, stood before a holoboard projecting Eli's debrief. "He's not just a soldier," Halvox said, his voice heavy with respect. "He's a paradigm shift. Humans don't fight like us. They reshape the battlefield before it's drawn." Eli, stationed at Outpost Theta, a fortified hub on the edge of Coalition space, spent his nights in quiet reflection. The outpost's observation deck overlooked a nebula's swirling colors, its beauty a stark contrast to the war's brutality. He traced the scars on his recon knife, each mark a memory of survival sacrifice, and the medic's vow that anchored him. Survive and make them see. Her face lingered in his mind, her eyes fierce, even as life faded on Traxxas 3. That promise drove him not for glory, But for the truth humans carried, a truth the galaxy was only beginning to grasp. A junior officer, a human recruit fresh from Earth, approached hesitantly. "Sir, is it true you broke a Varix warship alone?" Eli's gaze softened, but his voice carried the weight of experience. "I wasn't alone. I had their fears with me." The Blackhold's logs, salvaged by Coalition scavengers, became a cautionary tale etched into training manuals. Kavor, stripped of rank and haunted by his defeat, wandered the outer rims, a shadow of his former self. In a dimly lit cantina on a forgotten asteroid, he spoke to a cloaked figure, his voice broken. "I thought him weak, but he was the void itself." Vale and Crix, now Coalition advisors, advocated for human integration, their scales marked with new tattoos, symbols of respect for the species they once scorned. The galaxy's prejudice began to erode, replaced by a reluctant awe. In strategy rooms, commanders debated, if one human can do this, what could 1,000 do? The Coalition's war against the Void Hordes intensified, and Eli's legend became a beacon for human recruits. At Outpost Theta, training grounds buzzed with activity, young soldiers drilling under the watchful eyes of veterans. Eli, now a tactical advisor, walked among them, his presence quiet but commanding. Recruits whispered his call sign, in awe, their eyes wide, as they recounted stories of the Blackhold's fall. A young woman, her uniform crisp, but her hands calloused from Earth's labor camps, approached him during a drill. "Lieutenant Voss, how do you fight without fighting?" she asked, her voice eager, yet uncertain. Eli paused, his pale eyes meeting hers. "You listen," he said. "The enemy's fears speak louder than their weapons. Use that." His methods spread, reshaping Coalition tactics. In simulation rooms, recruits practiced psychological warfare, learning to exploit enemy doubts as Eli had. Holoscreens displayed scenarios inspired by the Blackhold ships, crippled not by firepower, but by internal collapse crews undone by their own paranoia. A Slinth instructor, her scales etched with Coalition insignia, addressed a class. "The Pale Reaper taught us that minds are battlegrounds. Humans excel there." Eli, observing from the back, felt a pang of unease. I'm no hero, he thought, just a man who survived. Yet the galaxy needed symbols, and he had become one. On the planet Varnus, a Varix warlord, emboldened by the Blackhold's fall, challenged the Coalition, dismissing humans as soft targets. Eli was dispatched not as a soldier, but as a specter. He infiltrated Varnus's stronghold alone, moving through vents and shadows, planting subtle glitches in their systems, lights flickering, comms whispering his call sign. By dawn, the warlord's forces were in disarray, accusing each other of betrayal. The warlord surrendered without a shot, fired, his mandibles trembling as he muttered, "The Reaper was here." Eli slipped away, leaving only whispers in his wake, his presence a ghost that haunted the warlord's nightmares. Back at Theta, Eli received an encrypted message from Vale, now a Coalition liaison. "Your shadow grows, Reaper," it read. "The galaxy sees humans differently now. Thank you." Eli deleted the message, his expression unreadable. "I don't want thanks," he thought. "I want them to understand." The medic's vow echoed in his mind, a reminder that his fight was for clarity, not conquest. The Coalition's strength grew bolstered by human ingenuity, but Eli knew the war was far from over. The Void Hordes loomed, and with them new challenges that would test the galaxy's newfound respect. The Galactic War reached a turning point as the Void Hordes launched a coordinated assault on Coalition space, their biomechanical swarms erupting from rift anomalies like a plague unleashed, blotting out stars with writhing masses. Fleets clashed in the nebula's heart, where light bent around gravitational warps, and stars bled plasma in their deaths, painting the void in crimson and gold streaks that trailed like blood from cosmic wounds. Eli, now a reluctant legend whose call sign evoked shudders in enemy briefings, was summoned to the Coalition's flagship Aurora's Blade, a behemoth of sleek lines and bristling turrets cutting through the fray like a dagger. Admiral Lysera, a towering Varix with scars from a dozen campaigns crisscrossing her exoskeleton like battle maps, greeted him with a nod of respect in the flag bridge's command nexus, a stark contrast to the disdain of years past, her mandibles still in a rare show of deference. "Reaper," she said, her voice carrying the weight of command tempered by humility. "We need your mind to pierce this tide. The hordes overwhelm our lines." The war room buzzed with tension, holomaps projecting the Horde's advance in swirling red icons, their formations a relentless tide crashing against Blue Coalition defenses, analysts chattering in a frenzy of probabilities. Eli studied the data with unhurried focus, his silence a blade cutting through the chaos of overlapping voices tracing patterns in the Horde's erratic swarms. "They're overconfident in their numbers," he said at last, his voice calm but resolute, as he pointed to a cluster of rift points swarming like insects without regard for traps. "Let's use it mirror their chaos back at them." Under Eli's guidance, the Coalition deployed decoy signals laced with Blackhold-inspired glitches, mimicking system failures, to sow confusion among the Horde's hive mind links, false data flooding their networks with visions of internal betrayal. Void ships faltered mid-maneuver, their AI systems looping false data streams that depicted Allied vessels turning traitor crews, such as they were in their semi-organic forms, turning on each other in spasms of self-destruction, hulls rupturing in silent blooms. Eli's team, a mix of humans and aliens trained in his methods during intensive sim sessions, infiltrated key enemy vessels via boarding pods that latched like parasites, planting psychological traps in core processors, algorithms that amplified latent doubts into full rebellions. One human recruit, inspired by Eli's legend and her own family's losses to Horde raids, hacked a Horde flagship's comms from a concealed position, broadcasting a looped whisper in their ultrasonic frequencies. "The Reaper sees you, every twitch, every fear." The Horde's morale, if such a collective could have it collapse like a house of cards, ships retreating into the nebula's depths in disorganized flight, their formations shattered like glass under a hammer, leaving debris fields that Coalition salvage teams would mine for tech. The Coalition hailed the victory as the Battle of the Silent Apex, crediting Eli's tactics for turning the tide in official dispatches that spread across the nets his name invoked in toasts from core world palaces to rim outposts. Back on Aurora's blade, amid the cheers echoing through the corridors, Lizara clasped Eli's shoulder with claws gentle despite their lethal design, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with respect. "You've changed us, Voss, our strategies, our views. Humans are no longer the weak link in the chain. You're the pivot." Eli nodded acknowledgement, but his thoughts were elsewhere on Traxxas 3's ruined horizons, on Lyra's sacrifice, amid the smoke, on the cost of being a symbol that others pinned hopes upon. "I fight for her memory, for the fallen, not for glory, etched in stars." He thought, his fingers tracing the scars on his recon knife tucked in his belt. Each groove a tally of lives traded for survival. The Coalition's respect solidified like alloy in a mold, humans now integral to its strategy cores, their psychological ops divisions expanding with recruits, clamoring for Reaper doctrine training. Yet Eli felt the weight of his call sign a mantle he never sought heavy as the void itself. In his quarters, a Spartan space with a single viewport framing the battle's aftermath, he etched a new mark on his knife with a microlaser, a tribute to the victory, but also a somber reminder of the war's toll on souls and ships alike. The galaxy's perception of humans had shifted irrevocably like tectonic plates grinding into new alignments. In training academies from Earth's orbital stations to the crystalline learning domes of Slinth worlds, recruits studied the Pale Reaper's methods under instructors, blending human psychology with alien tactics, their lessons punctuated by sim runs of the Blackhold and Silent Apex. On distant worlds, like the jungle-choked moons of Lyrax, children played games of Reaper's silence, pretending to outwit enemies with cunning calm and whispered commands, their laughter echoing the legend's core. Eli, ever the ghost preferring shadows to spotlights, slipped back to Outpost Theta after the celebrations, content to let his legend grow, without him advising from afar via encrypted links. The war continued its grinding march, but the Coalition stood stronger, united by a truth carved in stone and starlight. Humans were the silent apex, their minds the ultimate weapon in an arsenal of stars. Years passed like hyperspace jumps blurring the stars, and the Galactic War's tide turned inexorably. The Void Hordes pushed back to the galaxy's ragged edge by relentless Coalition advances that blended firepower with finesse. Eli, now in his late 30s, gray threading his dark hair like silver veins in marble, retired to a quiet colony on Alara Prime, a lush world of rolling emerald hills and crystal-clear rivers, fed by twin suns that painted perpetual dawns far from the war's scars that still ached in his joints on rainy days. His recon knife rested on a wooden shelf in his modest cabin, its scars a map of his past etched in meticulous detail, each mark a story of survival amid the fury sacrifice on forgotten battlefields and the quiet victories that shaped empires. The colony's children, human and alien alike, with their mixed accents and curious eyes, gathered at his doorstep after school cycles, their small forms clustered on the porch steps amid blooming vines heavy with sweet-scented flowers. "Tell us about the Blackhold again," they pleaded, their voices a chorus of curiosity that filled the air like birdsong tugging at his sleeves with grubby hands. Eli smiled, his pale eyes softening with a warmth reserved for innocence. The weight of his legend, a quiet burden he bore with grace. It wasn't about fighting with blades or bolts. He'd say, his voice steady as he sat on the porch rocker creaking under his frame, the twin suns of Alara Prime casting golden light across the fields waving in the breeze. It was about really seeing what others miss, the fear in an enemy's eyes, the crack in their armor before it shatters. The coalition evolved into a galactic alliance, forging pacts in grand halls of mirrored glass and zero-G diplomacy, honored Eli with a silent tribute, a monument on Outpost Theta's central plaza, a simple obelisk of black granite quarried from Varnus's volcanoes, etched with his call sign in luminescent script and the words, "Strength in silence," glowing under the moon's pale light. Vale, now a high-ranking strategist with an office overlooking the Alliance's core assembly, visited him on Alara Prime via private shuttle. Her scales dulled by time, but her eyes sharp with purpose undimmed. "You reshaped us all, Voss, from conquerors to collaborators," she said, her voice warm with gratitude, as they walked the colony paths, lined with bioluminescent trees, her tail swaying in rhythm. "The galaxy fears and reveres humans because of you, their silence now a doctrine in our fleets." Eli shook his head humbly, kicking a pebble into the undergrowth, his expression a mix of modesty and quiet pride. "I just survived the storms," he said, but Vale's smile suggested she knew better, her scales catching the sunlight in final iridescent flashes as she nodded respectfully before departing, leaving a data crystal of thanks from Crix. Across the stars, the Pale Reaper's legacy endured, like a persistent signal in the cosmic noise. Coalition academies taught his tactics in immersive neural dives, blending human psychology with alien precision, their holoscreens filled with simulations of his silent victories, from Blackhold glitches to Apex whispers, students dissecting every pause and glance. On Cryan merchants in the endless bazaars sold trinkets etched with his silhouette on cheap alloys and fine crystal alike, their stalls bustling with pilgrims seeking relics of the legend, bartering tales for goods. In Xylara's taverns, alive with the pulse of electromusic and holographic spectacles, pilots raised glasses of fizzing nebula ale to the ghost who broke a warship with silence, their stories growing with each retelling, embellished with impossible feats that only enhanced the myth. Kavor, now a hermit on a barren moon, pocked with craters and howling winds, etched his own tribute into the regolith, with a laser stylus, a crude carving of a human figure, its eyes pale and piercing, like accusatory stars. "I was wrong to dismiss them," he wrote in his final log, uploaded to a drifting buoy before his end, and the galaxy paid to learn the price of blindness. Eli's thoughts often returned to Lyra in the quiet evenings, her vow, his guiding star amid the colony's peace, survive and make them see the depth of our humanity. He had through actions that rippled outward, and the galaxy had seen not just his strength, but humanity's unyielding spirit. As he watched Alara Prime's twin suns set their light painting the fields, in hues of amber and crimson that danced on the river's surface, he felt a rare peace settle like dew on leaves. The war was not his to fight anymore, its battles handed to the next generation, but its lessons lived in every mind. He'd touched every alliance forged in the fire of revelation. The galaxy, once blind to humans' potential, now saw them as guardians of the profound, their silence a roar that echoed through the stars, reshaping destinies. On quiet nights, Eli would sit alone on the porch, his knife in hand glinting in moonlight, and whisper to the stars overhead, "I made them see." The galaxy listened, and its silence was his ultimate victory, a testament eternal. Decades later, the Galactic Alliance stood as a beacon of unity amid the cosmos, its fleets, a testament to the seamless integration of human ingenuity, with alien-strength vessels plying trade routes once contested, now patrolled in peace. On Alara Prime, Eli, now in his 50s, his hair fully silvered like comet trails, lived as a quiet mentor to the colony's youth, his cabin expanded with a study filled with holobooks on philosophy and tactics. His home was a modest structure nestled among rolling hills dotted with wildflowers that bloomed in perpetual spring, its walls lined with books bound in synth leather and artifacts from his years in the war shards from the Blackhold, a Varric's claw from a fallen foe, Lyra's faded locket, the recon knife now a relic polished by time, and handling hung above the hearth where a fire crackled on cool evenings, its scars a silent chronicle of battles, won not with steel's clash, but with will's unyielding forge. Young recruits from across the galaxy made pilgrimages to Alara Prime shuttles, landing in the colony's dusty pads, seeking wisdom from the man who had become a myth woven into Alliance lore. How do you fight a war in the mind, sir, when the body screams for action? A young Varric's asked during one gathering, his mandibles quivering with awe as the group sat cross-legged on the grass. Eli's answer was simple, his voice weathered, but firm like ancient oak. You don't fight blindly. You understand. Know your enemy's fears intimately, and they fight themselves, turn their aggression inward until it consumes them. The Alliance's academies had evolved into grand institutions orbiting neutral worlds, their curricula shaped indelibly by Eli's legacy classrooms, alive with diverse species debating ethics of psyops. Instructors taught the Reaper Doctrine, a blend of psychological warfare and strategic silence, emphasizing observation over aggression with modules on exploiting cultural biases and neural vulnerabilities. Holo simulations recreated the Blackhold's fall in exquisite detail, students analyzing Eli's tactics, frame by frame, how he turned systems against their masters with minimal intrusion, how he wove fear into a weapon sharper than any blade, pausing to discuss the ethical tightrope of mind games. A human instructor, her eyes bright with pride, inherited from stories of Voss told her class amid the glow of projection fields. The Pale Reaper showed us that humanity's strength lies not in numbers or raw power, but in perception. We see what others cannot, the hidden fractures waiting to widen. The students, a mix of species, from lithe slinth to burly grelm, nodded in reverence, their datapads filled with notes on the man who reshaped the galaxy, scribbling addendums on adapting the doctrine to new threats like emergent AI collectives. On the planet Shalor, a frigid world of ice spires and geothermal vents, spewing steam into aurora-lit skies, a new threat emerged, a rogue faction of Void Horde remnants led by a warlord named Zikra, who had survived the apex by burrowing into cryo-hibernation, now seeking to exploit the Alliance's hard-won peace with hit-and-run raids on fringe colonies. Zykra's forces used guerrilla tactics honed in the rifts, striking outposts with biomechanical swarms, and vanishing into cryo-pockets in the ice. The Alliance turned to Eli's protégés, a new generation trained in his methods during intensive retreats on simulated hellworlds. A young human lieutenant, Maracade, with Voss's callsign etched on her neural implant as a talisman, led a covert team to Shaler's moons, her tactics drawn directly from Eli's playbook, subtle infiltrations, via ice-boring drones, planting glitches that mimicked Horde hive comms gone rogue. She infiltrated Zikra's flagship, a grotesque amalgamation of organic hull and stolen tech planting, subtle glitches that turned his crew's paranoia against them comms, looping their own fears in ultrasonic bursts, sensors showing phantom fleets of Reapers closing in. By the time Mara's team struck with precision, EMPs, Zikra's forces were in chaos, biomechanical limbs turning on each other in spasmodic frenzy, surrendering without a fight as the warlord's overrides failed. Mara, reporting back to the Alliance via secure burst, credited her mentor in the transmission Voss taught us to win, before the battle begins to seed the doubt that harvests defeat. Eli, informed of the victory via a holo message flickering in his study, smiled faintly as Mara's image dissolved the twin suns setting outside his window. Lyra would be proud of this chain, he thought, her vow still burning in his heart like an eternal ember linking past to future. He declined invitations to return to active duty, with polite refusals content to guide from afar, through letters and sim advisories, his words carrying more weight than any fleet. The Alliance named a new class of stealth ships after him, Reaper-class vessels designed for psychological operations, with hulls sleek and silent like their namesake, equipped with emitter arrays for broadcasting fear inducers across light years. On Alara Prime, Eli tended his garden amid the hills, the act of nurturing life planting seeds in rich soil, watching them unfurl a counterpoint to his years of war's destruction hands, that once coated viruses, now coaxing blooms. Yet his legacy was alive in every silent victory across the Alliance, every mind turned against itself in distant conflicts, every battle won without bloodshed staining the logs. The galaxy once divided by suspicion and scorn, now stood united its strength, rooted in the truth Eli had carved into its soul with unyielding precision. Silence is the vanguard of victory, leading the charge where noise would fail. As centuries passed in the grand sweep of galactic time, the Galactic Alliance grew into a sprawling federation encompassing nebulae nurseries and star clusters teeming with life, its borders stretching like the arms of a spiral galaxy, fostering eras of exploration and shared prosperity. The legend of the Pale Reaper transcended mere history, woven into the cultural fabric of countless worlds, like a thread in a vast tapestry invoked in art song and solemn oaths. On Cryon, amid the endless dunes where sandstorms sang ancient dirges, temples bore his silhouette etched in glowing crystal that pulsed with inner light, a symbol of resilience and cunning, drawing pilgrims who left offerings of rare minerals at altars. In Zalara's schools, towering edifices of chrome and light, where young minds interfaced directly with knowledge nets, children memorized his story as foundational lore, reciting Lyra's vow as a mantra during ethics classes. Survive and make them see words that spark debates on the morality of Psi-War. The Blackhold's wreckage, salvaged and preserved in a coalition museum orbiting a neutral gas giant, drew scholars and warriors alike through its reconstructed corridors, its twisted hull, a testament to the power of a single human mind. Interactive exhibits simulating the glitches for immersive learning. Eli, long gone to the void's embrace, had left behind no direct descendants in blood, but his influence was his true lineage branching through protégés like Mara and their students in an endless chain. The Reaper Doctrine evolved with the ages adapted by new generations facing emergent threats, rogue AI swarms rebelling against creators, interstellar plagues that warped perceptions, warlords rising from forgotten sectors with hybrid tech. A young Slinth scholar, her scales gleaming with youth and adorned with academic beads, published a treatise titled The Silent Apex, Humanity's Legacy in Galactic Warfare. Its pages dense with analyses crediting Eli's tactics for the Alliance's enduring strength against existential foes. The Pale Reaper taught us that true power lies not in destruction's roar, but in perception's quiet gaze. She wrote in the preface, her words studied in strategy halls across the stars, from the fog-shrouded academies of fog worlds to the zero-G lecture spheres. On Shaler now, a thriving Alliance base with domed cities piercing the ice. Maracade, elevated to general, with a chest of commendations, unveiled a statue of Eli in the central plaza, its eyes carved from pale quartz to pierce the soul like his own, a reminder amid swirling snows of the man who saw what others could not, the fractures in the enemy's will. In the quiet of Alara Prime's hills, where Eli's home had once stood amid the wildflowers, a memorial garden bloomed eternally, its flowers genetically engineered to glow under the twin suns, paths winding through arches of living wood, inscribed with quotes from his debriefs. Pilgrims from distant systems left tokens, replica knives forged in artisan shops, data chips loaded with sims of his battles, whispered prayers on audio orbs, honoring the man who reshaped the galaxy's soul. A young human training to join the Reaper-class fleet with a neural link humming in her skull, knelt in the garden one dawn, her fingers brushing the soil rich with history. "Thank you, Voss," she whispered to the wind, carrying scents of bloom and earth, "for showing us who we are survivors, Seer's silent guardians." The breeze carried her words across the hills. a faint echo of the vow that had guided Eli's life through tempests linking eras. The galaxy forever changed by one man's whisper. Amid the roar, listen to the eternal whisper of the Pale Reaper, its truth carved not just in stone monoliths or data vaults, but in the minds of those who dared to see beyond the star's facade, a legacy of silence that outlasted empires. The whisper endures, doesn't it? If this epic stirred your heart, subscribe and comment, share a moment when a single truth changed your world. The stars are listening, and your story is part of their song.